It was, obviously there was whispers before the fight that Pavlik was having issues, problems. We had obviously the talks of the Paul Williams fight falling through, and claims of a staph infection and reactions to antibiotics that claimed it almost killed him. So it was a big fight at that time in the middleweight division. It was like a division at that time. It was pretty thin because obviously Jermaine Taylor had been vanquished. Hopkins is up at 175 at this point, which Pavlik got beat off at a catch weight. It's very kind of thinned out, and challenger or worthy contenders at least were kind of hard to find. So this was really the fight between one and, well, obviously Pavlik being number one in the division and Williams being number two. Just could not, for whatever reason, get that fight over the line. Injuries and illness, and obviously allegations of ducking and that. But this actually served up to be something special. Actually, to have a guy coming up, taking the fight on notice as well, coming up from 154 as a champion as well in his own right, to fight the bigger man that was physically imposing. You could see the difference in size between these two guys, and that to put on the performance and what he did. I thought it was one of the best performances of that time I can remember, actually, because from that point on, maybe a couple of fights before that, Sergio Martinez was one of my favourite B-side fighters, actually. Anybody listening what the B-side is it's a guy coming into away territory, not given much a chance, and but you always know he's going to be there. A guy like Gabriel Campillo, guys of that ilk, for example. So he was well worthy, proven to be a worthy contender, actually. But at the same time, as I think going into the fight, at least he would have been a betting underdog without doubt, just purely because of Pavlik's size, his power, and obviously the kind of the competition he faced up to that point as well. But it was something really, at least anyway, because obviously, as we mentioned there, it was a fighter that actually, me and Matty at least, I can remember talking about going into the Chavez fight. I don't know if Matty can remember this, but I think we were the only two people convinced that Martinez was going to piss the fight against Chavez, and he absolutely did until the 12th round. But I guess we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we certainly will do. Absolutely. You've preempted me, Matty, and thrown something into the chat there. I was going to mention to you. Where do you stand on both fighters? When did you first become aware of them both? Because obviously a lot of stateside fans would have picked up on Martinez whenever he fought Alex Bonema in 2008, and that was his WBC interim super welterweight title. He kind of announced himself on the scene. But as you've mentioned, the first time I became aware of him was in 2003 when he came over to the UK to fight Richard Williams, who was a good, solid domestic level fighter. Back then, the WBU, IBO, WBF, to a lesser extent, titles were really being lauded around Sky. Barry Hearn, in his original incarnation, was there. Richard Williams, the secret, was a good fighter. And a lot of people expected him to beat this unknown Argentinian who was based in Spain. Martinez got dropped in the third round, as he tended to do throughout his career. Managed to get the win over Williams. They loved him so much, they brought him back again a few months later to defeat Adrian Stone. Good fighter in his day. Had fought Sugar Shane Mosley as well. Knocked him out. And then the return in the King's Hall, Belfast. I wasn't over here at that point, so I didn't get to go to that fight. He stopped Williams. Those were the three fights in the UK when I first became aware of this guy who'd been stopped by Margarito a while back. That was his lone loss at that point when he'd ventured into Las Vegas. Bit of a road warrior, Matty. Were you aware of him at that time?
No, I didn't get to become like a real hardcore boxing fan until around the time that Sergio Martinez came stateside. So I was really introduced to him with the Bonema fight, and but then obviously I've gone back and watched some of those fights, watched highlight reels of them, the Margarito fight. And Sergio Martinez is just amazing for the fact that, he really took up this sport around the age of 20. He took it up to increase his fitness for his football game. He was a cyclist, and he just took to the sport. And obviously Margarito fight, he was so green, but as he developed over the years and he became more unorthodox and just got into his style and became a rhythm fighter. It was the evolution of a very, very special person. And by the time he came stateside, that fighting style was basically polished to the Sergio Martinez that we know today. And you were blessed to see it beforehand, because when he was coming over here, you might have had a reckoning that, hey guys, watch out for this guy. because he is something else. And it was incredible. And he also holds a record, Steve. He's the only fighter who has ever been robbed of a victory in 3 different ways in a fight, via decision, knockout, and what could have been a disqualification for his Cintron's corner people coming into the ring. And he somehow ended up with a draw in that fight. The tale of Sergio Martinez is crazy.
And it was certainly round 6, so it was certainly one of Pavlik's better rounds. If no, it could have been maybe the first round they won in the fight, maybe round 5 possibly. But round 7, I think this is where we're seeing Pavlik maybe getting a foothold in the fight. He's caught Sergio with a right hand. He's a wee bit off balance as he's turning, but you can see, as you mentioned, with that left hand, as Sergio is trying to kind of spin out, he's kind of load down. He's obviously off balance, but Kelly's put his left hand on top of his head as he's kind of like rolling out, and he's hitting my right hand, and obviously he's off balance, down he goes. It's obviously a knockdown at that point. But one thing as well was I did notice maybe Sergio was getting slightly frustrated because he was jawing with Pavlik when Pavlik was landing some shots in that round about the 6th and 7th round, kind of like El Mas Macho, let's go, and really want to prove himself. But I think after the 7th round, I think Lederman had it level, 66-66. So that's obviously with the knockdown as well included. So I don't know if you guys scored the fight, but it would be really hard. I don't know if it'd be hard to have that level at that point, to be fair.
Yeah, well, things were definitely narrowing up, Matty, especially in that 6th. I thought Pavlik is blocking quite a lot of the Martinez shots now. He's starting to realise where they're coming from. He's making him fall short. He's starting to get a little bit slack. He's working out the flow and the rhythm a bit. Jack Lowe in the corner, he's doing his best strategic advice, Matty. Calls Martinez a son of a bitch. I suppose he's more a Norman Stone kind of motivator, but Pavlik is starting to work out his rhythm a little bit by this point.
Yeah, and I think Pavlik really started winning the fight around the 5th round. He got into it, and in the 6th, I think if you had to pick a round where it looked like he finally established the jab, and you got to remember, Kelly Pavlik had a really good jab, and he finally got it going in the 6th, where it was really controlling the rounds and setting up his work. He started finding a way to kind of parry away Martinez's right hand when he threw it, and then kind of coming in with a counter jab, a really clever shot, actually. I think Kelly's ring IQ is actually a little bit underrated. But then you get into in the 7th round, and then he scores that knockdown with the little hold and hit move, a shot. I guess you could have gone either way on it. I'm fine with the knockdown, call it at the end of the day. But there you have it. After 8 rounds. I had Pavlik up by 1 point because of the knockdown, but there's been 2 completely different fights at this point in time. We often talk about the tale of 2 fights and 2 halves. What I love about Martinez versus Pavlik, and obviously we're getting to it, is this is the story of 3 fights. All the thirds of this fight, all very, very different, and it looked so good for Kelly Pavlik leaving that 8th round. Martinez got his stuff together. He didn't look in much trouble. Pavlik looked confident, fighting at his distance, starting to pick up his punch output. But man, things were really going to change in the 9th round.